Hey everyone, let's continue our discussion on the next topic in the series on environment and ecology. I hope you have done all the previous videos that we have done by far. So you can see this is the last topic that we did in the previous video, which was on the micro consumer. So basically we have done about the different components of the ecosystem. We have seen one aspect of like the abiotic component in one video, then biotic component in one video. Within that we have talked about these particular things like primary producers and the consumers. So let's continue our discussion. The next topic here would be the levels of, and I request those of you who are new to the channel, please do like, comment, share and subscribe if you feel these videos are helpful to you in your preparation. Do check the geography videos also. All the links of different playlists are given in the description section of the video. Telegram channel link is also provided so that you are updated about any kind of information coming from my side, because that is the only possible way out to reach out to all of you. Alright. Levels of organizations in ecology. Now we have understood about the basic terminologies and we have also seen the components of the ecosystem. But now what is more important is that we see that how are things organized, or let's say what is the level of the organization in ecology. Ecology was the study, if you remember, of the relationship between living organisms and the organisms with their environment. So basically we study 6 levels of organizations. So what are those 6 levels? We will do all of them one by one, and within all of these levels also I will do greater detail, okay? Taking the content from both NCERT as well as some standard environment related books. So you have the 6 levels like organisms, population, communities, ecosystem, biome and biosphere. Now you know about that, before organisms, if you just see, so for ecology you have these 6 levels. Okay, so ecology के लिए सिर्फ इतने ही levels count होते हैं, but before organisms also, if you see, for example, you talk about, let's say, cells combine to form tissues combine to form organ combines to form different organ system. For example, you have nervous system, you have like circulatory system, you have respiratory system, you have excretory system, etc. So all of these organ systems then combine to form one organism. So organisms, or you can also say it to be like individual. So when the individuals combine, they form population. When the population combines, they form community. Then we have ecosystem. The basic definition we have already done earlier, but once we proceed with this topic, then we will do that in detail again. And then you have biome, and then you have the final living zone wherein atmosphere, lithosphere and hydrosphere combine to form it biosphere. Let's start discussing. So in this particular video I'll restrict myself to discuss about the organisms, and subsequently with each video we will see the details of different levels. So let's start with organism पर आते हैं. So organism को आप कह सकते हो that it is the individual living being that can act or function independently. And ये तो बहुत ही सिंपल सी चीज़ है जो हम अपनी डेली लाइफ में समझते भी हैं, that any individual living being which can act or function independently of itself. So what it will include, for example, you talk about plants, you talk about animals, you talk about fungi, etc. So that is an organism, which is a body made up of different organs and organ system. Now within this only one term also you will come across at several places, so you should be familiar with the term species. Species क्या होता है? It is a group of living organism. You have to focus on the keywords very carefully. Group of living organisms consisting of similar individuals capable of exchanging genes, these are standard definitions, or of interbreeding. Let's see what have we written by far. So firstly it has to be a group of living organisms. ठीक है, यहाँ तक तो क्लियर होना चाहिए. Which will consist of similar individuals. So similar, क्योंकि that is why individual के level पे ही हम बात कर रहे हैं ना, that is why we are discussing the term species here only. So kind of similar individuals would be there which will be or who will be capable of exchanging their genes. ठीक है, उनके जो genes होंगे उसको वो exchange कर सकते हैं या फिर interbreed, आपस में breed कर सकते हैं. For example, let's say if you talk about Homo sapiens, जो हम humans के लिए term use करते हैं, तो you can consider them to be like one species of similar individuals. ठीक है, so this is one term that you have to remember. Now once we are done with the concept of organism, in the next video then we'll talk further about population etc. But now when we talk about the individuals, or let's say the organisms, it will include both plants, animals. You have to be very clear with that. We also need to see that how are the organisms, or let's say the individuals, able to survive in their surrounding, in their environment. So how do they respond to the abiotic factors? Now what are the abiotic factors? We have already done earlier. So what are the responses to the abiotic factors? This is what we will now understand and see. So here you will come across one term which is homeostasis. You have to very particularly understand this term, and once you understand this, the other mechanisms of doing this also will be very clear to you. Now homeostasis is the capacity of organisms. So we are doing under the topic of organisms only. Capacity of organisms to maintain stable equilibrium. That is consistency of internal environment despite varying external situations. I will explain all of that also, don't worry. Varying external environmental conditions, especially through physiological functions. Now let's see what is given here. So it is telling that the organisms are capable. So those organisms, of course, not every organism will be able to do this. So we will see different mechanisms of coping up with the external disturbances, or let's say external environmental condition. But let's just check this as a definition. So organisms की capacity, जब वो अपना internal environment situation को maintain कर पाएँ, उस equilibrium को stable रख पाएँ, अगर it is telling despite, so अगर बाहर में external environmental situations or conditions are varying, still that the organisms are able to maintain their internal situations very precisely or carefully, then that situation is called as homeostasis, and that is done through the physiological functions, basically with the help of body parts. Now it might not be clear to many of you, so let's see this with the help of example and you will automatically understand it. Now you know that अगर हम बात करें हमारी humans की बात करते हैं, so we maintain a constant body temperature of 37 डिग्री सेंटीग्रेड. ठीक है, दिस इज़ आर नॉर्मल बॉडी टेम्परेचर. अब क्या होता है जब गर्मी होती है, ठीक है, इन दी समर्स, वी नो दैट नाउ दिस इज द नॉर्मल बॉडी टेम्परेचर. ठीक है, कांस्टेंट. वी नो समर्स में क्या होगा, एक्सटर्नल एनवायरमेंटल सिचुएशन विल बी हॉट. ठीक है, so in that case what will happen, in that case we have to cool our body because external situation is already very warm and we have to maintain this constant body temperature. So for that matter, what will be the need, we will have to cool our body. So how do we cool our body? That happens by the process or through the process of sweating. पसीना निकलता है ना, तो इवेपोरेट हो जाता है पसीना. ठीक है, उससे क्या होता है, स्वेट जो है वो निकलता है, तो हमारी बॉडी थोड़ी कूल होने लग जाती है. सो वी मैनेज विद दैट एक्सटर्नल सिचुएशन. But then what happens in winter? अब बाहर की situation is very cold in the winters. Then what happens? Then we produce heat. Then we have to manage the body temperature. So our body produce heat by shivering. So homeostasis is the natural, like the constant temperature, to be able to maintain that constant or stable equilibrium inside the body despite of certain changes happening outside. So अगर हम हमारी बात करें, so we maintain that homeostasis by the process of sweating or let's say shivering in different environmental situations. I hope that should be clear to you now. Now the idea is ki, are all the organisms able to do this very precisely? Of course not. Then different organisms are existing in the environment or in the ecosystem. So how do they cope up with the external situations? So we have different mechanisms to do that, or different mechanisms to manage with that. Let's see the different mechanisms of managing with homeostasis. The first one that you have to study is regulate. That is about regulating your body system. So for example, the above example that we have done will actually be considered within the example of regulate also. So here what will happen? The organisms will maintain the homeostasis by फिजियोलॉजिकल यानी बॉडी के रिस्पॉन्स से, या बिहेवियरल मीन्स कुछ ऐसे चीज़ें भी करके. अबाउट दिस ऑल्सो वी विल डू लेटर. बिहेवियरल मीन्स दैट इंश्योर्स कांस्टेंट बॉडी टेम्परेचर etc. So when we talk about constant body temperature, we can use the term thermoregulation. ठीक है. सो होम्योस्टेसिस कैसे मेंटेन करना है? बाय फिजियोलॉजिकल और बिहेवियरल मीन्स विच विल इंश्योर द कांस्टेंट बॉडी टेम्परेचर. Now the idea is that humans can do this, for example, and some other animals can also do this, but plants have no mechanism to maintain the internal temperature. So plants manage, by different mechanisms, and we will talk about different other mechanisms also in the coming section. For example, the first one is regulate. तो ये तो वर्ड से आपको क्लियर हो जाना चाहिए that you are regulating your physiological situations. Now many organisms might not be able to regulate. Then what do? They conform. Now what is this conformity? So that happens in the case of majority, or you can roughly say, let's say 99% of the animals and almost all the plants. ठीक है. Now these animals or plants which cannot maintain a constant internal environment, because those of them who will be able to maintain that constant internal environment will be known as the regulators. But what about them who will not be able to maintain a constant internal environment and whose body temperature will change with the external temperature or with the ambient temperature? बाहर की चीज़ों से उनके बॉडी पर भी असर पड़ेगा और उनका बॉडी टेम्परेचर चेंज होते जाएगा, and they will not be able to maintain a constant internal environment. Then in this case what will happen? So these organisms are known as conformers. So they use different mechanisms to manage with that. We'll just see. For example, even if you talk about, let's say, aquatic animals, ठीक है, तो एक्वेटिक एनिमल्स का जो अंदर का बॉडी का वाटर कॉन्सेंट्रेशन रहेगा, या फिर आप कहोगे जो भी बॉडी फ्लूइड की ऑस्मोटिक कॉन्सेंट्रेशन है, दैट चेंजेस बिकॉज ऑफ द एयर एंड वाटर प्रेजेंट आउटसाइड. दे आर नॉट एबल टू मेंटेन दैट वन स्टैटिक और वन कॉन्स्टेंट इंटरनल एनवायरमेंट. So now the question is that they are known as conformers, but why these conformers could not have become regulators? Why are they not able to become the regulators, or let's say why are they not able to do this? So for example, if we write this as a question, that why are conformers not able to become regulators? क्यों नहीं बन पाते हैं? Because the major idea is that thermoregulation, that is maintaining your body temperature, is energetically, these are the lines that I've taken from our NCRT directly, energetically expensive for many organisms. यानी इसको करने में बहुत एनर्जी लगती है. So for many of the organisms बहुत एनर्जी जाती है and they are not able to do that. For example, if we like talk about certain very small animals, ठीक है, or let's say smaller birds like hummingbirds etc. तो जो small animals होते हैं, because of their larger surface area with respect to their volume, जितना इनका वॉल्यूम होता है उसके कंपैरिजन में दे हैव लार्जर सरफेस एरिया. नाउ बिकॉज ऑफ दैट व्हाट हैपन्स, दे लूज, बिकॉज सरफेस एरिया इज ऑल अबाउट, मतलब सरफेस एरिया इज द की फैक्टर बिकॉज ऑफ विच हीट लॉस और गेन वुड बी देयर. सो दे लूज बॉडी हीट faster. So if there is cold outside, they will lose the body heat very faster. Now if they lose the body heat, they need to use much energy to generate body heat. अब उनको चाहिए भी बॉडी हीट, अगर लूज़ हो जाएगा तो उनको चाहिए, क्योंकि सरफेस एरिया ज़्यादा है तो उनका बॉडी हीट जल्दी लूज़ हो जाएगा. नाउ इफ़ दैट इज़ लॉस्ट वेरी फास्टर, दे विल नीड टू हैव दैट हीट बैक, दे विल नीड टू जनरेट द बॉडी हीट, ठीक है, एंड फॉर दैट सो मच ऑफ एनर्जी इज़ नीडेड. अब क्या हो जाएगा इस केस में, it is very difficult for them to regulate their body temperature. So in this case what will happen, they will just conform, they will just accept the situation and accordingly their sustenance would be continued. They will not be able to maintain that internal temperature with respect to the external temperature. And that is the reason we see that very small animals are not found in the polar regions, or let's say very rarely found, because in the polar regions we have like so much of cold, and अगर इनकी body heat चली जाएगी तो to gain that body heat, or let's say to generate that body heat, they will have to spend so much of energy and they will not be able to do that. So we have seen two different types of mechanisms. One is regulation, another is conformation. There are certain other alternatives also for survival if the external situations are just for, let's say, shorter duration or just in a particular area. So those type of topics we will continue in the next video. If these videos are helpful to you, please do like, comment, share and subscribe. Thank you so much. Do check the geography one as well. Bye bye.